you who are new to IT Service Management and ITSM Academy, here's a quick overview of us. ITSM Academy is a full-service provider of IT Service Management education. We develop all content in-house. That includes all ITIL education as well as process design, Agile, and DevOps. Since 2003, we've trained and certified tens of thousands of students. And now I'd like to introduce today's speaker, Jeff Rumburg. Jeff is the winner of the 2014 Ron Munn's Lifetime Achievement Award and was named to HDI's Top 25 Thought Leaders list for 2016. As co-founder and CEO of MetricNet, Jeff has been retained and is an IT service and support expert by some of the world's largest corporations that are using him, and that includes American Express, Hewlett-Packard, Coca-Cola, and Sony. He was formerly CEO of the Verity Group and Vice President of Gartner. Jeff received his MBA from Harvard University and his Master's in Operations Research from Stanford University. Good morning, Jeff.
Good morning, Karen. How are you?
I'm fine. How are you?
Doing just great, thank you.
Are you ready for me to make you presenter here?
I sure am.
Okay, let me do that. We're very excited to hear your presentation today.
Thank you so much. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here as a first-time presenter at ITSM Academy. Let me click the show button and then put myself in presentation mode. Let me know when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen. I can see it. I'm not in presentation mode yet. I can see your slides on the side. There you go. Perfect. All ready to go.
Okay, very good. Once again, I'm a first-time presenter here at the ITSM Academy, and I couldn't be more thrilled to be here. So, Karen, thank you so much for that kind introduction. Just by way of quick introduction, MetricNet's core business is benchmarking. Some of you probably know us. We perform benchmarks for a variety of industries and functional areas. My role in the company is to manage the IT service and support benchmarks as well as the call center benchmarks for MetricNet. The work we do for IT service and support organizations worldwide spans the gambit from benchmarking to consolidation studies and outsourcing analyses. And typically the service and support groups that we work with are looking to optimize their performance, and we help them achieve that objective through benchmarking. Now, for those that are attending the HDI conference next April, I'd like to invite you to attend one or both of MetricNet's presentations there. I'll be speaking on two topics. The first is a case study of how we took Southwest Airlines from good to great with their service desk over a one-year period of time. And the second presentation on April 12th talks about the industry megatrend of the enterprise service desk and how we believe that this represents perhaps the greatest opportunity in a generation for IT service and support professionals. And if you're planning to attend the ICMI conference in Orlando next May, once again, I'd like to invite you to attend MetricNet's presentations there. Once again, I'll speak on two topics. The first one is on maximizing the ROI of customer care, very similar to what I'll be talking about today. And I'll also be sharing results from our 2018 contact center benchmark. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with our main event today. MetricNet has been in this industry for 28 years now. MetricNet and its predecessor companies, which include Gartner and the first company that I started, the Verity Group, have collectively completed nearly 4,000 IT service and support benchmarks during that period of time. Now, as a result, we have the industry's most comprehensive database of IT service and support process and performance indicators. We track more than 70 key performance indicators, everything from cost per contact to customer satisfaction at the level on service desk, everything from mean time to resolve to first visit resolution rate at desktop support. In addition to that, we are constantly looking for organizations that consistently exceed customer expectations, that consistently outperform what we would expect to see for the average of the industry. And based upon that, we have extracted and identified and created a taxonomy of more than 120 industry best practices. And one of the nice things about being in a benchmarking business is that we get to see a lot of data. We get to view the industry from sort of a high-level perspective. We get a bird's eye view of what's going on. We get an early warning indicator, if you will, for some of the mega trends that are starting to emerge in the industry. And we've got a lot of data that allows us to look into ROI and whether or not there is a valid ROI methodology for IT service management. But before I get too far down that track on talking about return on investment, let me start with a fairly basic concept, the ITSM Framework, which is generally, not everybody views the framework the same way, but generally it's viewed as IT service and support, which includes your change and config management, your incident release and problem management, and your service desk. And then over on the right-hand side, we got service delivery, which is availability and capacity management, service continuity, service level management, and financial management. Now, I would love to be able to tell you that there is an overarching ROI methodology for IT service management that you can, with a single methodology, determine what the payback, the return on investment is for IT service management, but that's just not true. What you can do, however, is each of these individual disciplines, availability management, capacity management, service continuity on the right-hand side, and then in IT service and support, change, config, incident release, problem, and service desk, you can calculate an ROI for each of these individual parts or components of the IT service management framework, and that includes idle. So think about the idle processes. You can determine the ROI of specific idle processes and roll that up into an overall ROI for idle. And for IT service management, you can calculate the individual ROIs of the components or the processes that we have shown here. Now, since this was originally presented at Fusion, Fusion is the overlap of IT service and support, which would be level 1 service desk and desktop support, and the broader discipline of IT service management. And because most of the attendees in those sessions were service and support professionals, the examples we used for ROI came from the service desk, and that's what I'll be presenting today. But I want to be very clear right up front that the methodology is broadly applicable. There's nothing different about the methodology. If you want to look at the ROI of problem management, release management, incident, config, change management, the methodology I'm presenting today is valid for those. Likewise on service delivery, availability, capacity, IT service continuity, the methodology I'll be presented is valid for all of those areas. But most of the examples today are going to focus on the service desk. Now, what is the financial impact of IT service management? Perhaps the most basic and fundamental equation in all of accounting is the profit equation. Profit is simply equal to an organization's sales or revenue minus their costs. Pretty straightforward, but it's profound in the sense that you can improve your profits in two ways. You can increase your revenue by growing market share, increasing customer lifetime value, increasing the average size of sale, and or you can decrease your costs. So you have two levers that you can pull here to drive higher profits. You can increase your revenue or you can decrease your cost. For example, reduce your operational expense, reduce the cost of downtime, increase user productivity. Now, profitability is very closely related to return on investment. The higher your profits are, generally the higher your ROI is going to be. So let's define ROI. It's a pretty simple ratio. ROI just means return over investment. Simple ratio. What is return? It's either savings that you're able to generate or profits or some combination of those two things divided by what you spent to get those savings or to get those profits. So it's a fairly simple ratio. It does require quantification. You got to be able to quantify the savings or profits. It's not some fluffy thing where we can say, well, we created a return and we spent some money. You have to quantify it if you want to come up with an ROI measure. It's implied that you're looking at a one-year time frame. That is, what was the return over the investment during this one-year period of time? It's implied as a one-year metric. It's one of the most widely used and accepted financial metrics. It can be used prospectively, meaning if you're putting together a business case to justify, for example, additional headcount, a new technology, or perhaps a project like root cause analysis, you can project what you expect the return to be, what you expect the investment to be, and then based on that ROI, you can make an intelligent choice, a decision about whether or not to move forward with that. It can also be used retrospectively to evaluate past business success. So we prospectively decide that we are going to move forward with a particular decision, a headcount or a technology decision, or a project decision like root cause analysis. And then after the fact, we can look at what actually happened. We can look at what the savings or profits were. In other words, what's the R, the return, and we can look at what we spent to get that. So it's a very versatile metric and an extremely powerful metric, and one that is underutilized in the IT service and support industry. As much as anything else in today's presentation, what I want to do is convince you to take this metric seriously and to start to take the necessary steps in order to calculate your ROI, because it will change the very nature of the services you provide to your organization, and it will change the nature of the relationship that you have with the broader organization. So let me give you two real simple examples. Let's say you buy a bank CD, certificate of deposit. It's $10,000. It yields 300% a year, R 300 investment, 10,000, 3% ROI. Unfortunately, you don't even get that much with a bank CD these days, but for purposes of illustration, that's how you calculate the ROI. Let's take a more significant example, and this is a hypothetical example, and we'll very quickly get into the real case studies. But let's say that we're considering hiring an outside training firm to reduce our handle time and to improve our first contact resolution rate. The training investment is going to be $10,000, and we find that we get a $20,000 return on that. What would the ROI be? The R is a $20,000, the I is $10,000. That's a 200% ROI. So following the training, the handle time drops from 10 to 9 minutes. That's a 1 minute savings. The cost per contact drops from $20 to $19. That $1 savings multiplied by 20,000 contacts per year yields a savings of $20,000. So these are the details of our hypothetical case study. So we've got a return, 20,000. We've got an investment, 10,000. 20 over 10 is 200%. Now, when people say positive ROI, that's not good enough. If your ROI is just positive, that doesn't necessarily mean that you're covering your costs. Your ROI has to be above 100%, because if ROI is 100%, it means that what you spent and what you got in return were the same thing. And I would argue that, well, maybe it wasn't worth doing. If the ROI is 100%, why did you do it? You spent as much as you got in return. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Worse, if your ROI is under 100%, then you really don't want to do it if you're looking for a 1 year ROI of above 100%. So we're looking for ROIs well in excess of 100%. And we know from empirical evidence that some of the service and support organizations we work with produce an ROI of 5, 6, 7, 800% per year. And they do that in a variety of ways, which I will talk about as I get deeper into today's presentation. But let's start with some of the anecdotal evidence around IT service management. In the finance industry, Raymond James claims to have reduced, and this is a true claim, we know firsthand, I won't get into the details, but we know firsthand that they were able to reduce service desk calls by 25% over an 18-month period of time. That's huge. This came out of Computer World magazine. We know independently from contacts that we have that, yes, this is actual data. They reduce, as a result of IT service management, they ascribe this 25% reduction in contacts to the service desk. That's a pretty big deal if you're spending $20, $25, $30 per contact. JP Morgan Chase eliminated 500,000 service desk calls a year, they claim, as a direct result of their investment in IT service management. Visa saw a reduction in MTTR, mean time to resolve, by as much as 75%. That from Smart Enterprise magazine. Purdue University, InfoWorld says they reduced second level calls by 50% and implemented a $73 million ERP without adding FTEs. That sounds like a pretty big ROI to me. Avaya reduced its IT budget, and they're in the billions of dollars in IT spending. Tech World says they reduced IT spending by 30% because of their IT service management discipline. And then two from the government, state of Illinois saved over $130 million a year. This is their claim. As a result of IT service management, the U.S. Postal Service reduced incident resolution times by 50%. And they also saw a 30% reduction time to implement new changes. That from Pink Elephant. Well, this is all anecdotal. It sounds good. It's pretty exciting. But, you know, I'm not from the state of Missouri, but I feel like I am the show me state. You know, they don't believe anything. They don't believe the Mississippi River exists unless you take them under the arch and take them right to the banks of the Mississippi River and show it to them. Well, I'm kind of the same way. All this anecdotal stuff, it's nice. You know, it gets me excited and I want a piece of it, but I'm kind of show me the money. You may remember the Jerry Maguire movie from the 1980s. Tom Cruise was a professional athlete agent who represented elite athletes in basketball, baseball, and football. And in this particular scene, he's talking to one of his high-earning clients, telling the client that he's about to get a massive contract from a professional football team. And the guy says, show me the money. In other words, I don't believe it until I see the money. And I'm kind of the same way, and I hope you are too, because you don't want to undertake anything unless you feel confident by the numbers that you're going to have an ROI of above 100% as a result of that. So show me the money. That's what we're going to do over the next 30, 40 minutes here, is show you the money. Now, as I mentioned, this was originally presented at the Fusion conference. Fusion is the overlap of HDI, which is IT service and support, and IT service management forum, which is more broadly IT service management. At the intersection, we have a lot of people that work in service and support. That's the majority of the personnel that attend that conference, and hence, you're going to see case studies largely from IT service and support, but I want to remind you again that the methodology that I'm going through here today is applicable to the ITIL processes. It's applicable to things like availability management, capacity management, problem management, service level management. And again, those can be rolled up into an overall ROI for ITSM or an overall ROI, for example, for ITIL. We've broken the ROI issue down into three components. There's organizational ROI, which answers the question, are you profitable? Even if you're running an internal service and support organization, it's pretty important to know that you're producing economic value that is in excess of what you're spending on an annual basis. That's what I mean by profitability. Let's say you spend $3 million a year with your service desk. How much economic value do you think you create? Chances are you don't know. But what if we could show you a methodology whereby you could determine that you create $9 million in economic value? The return, $9 million. Investment, $3 million. 9 over 3, 300% ROI. So are you profitable? Okay, you don't have to be an independent business to be profitable. We're looking for economic value creation that is in excess of your annual operating costs. So are you profitable with service desk? Are you profitable with desktop support? What's the overall ROI for end user support in your organization? And do you make a positive economic contribution? That's what an organizational ROI is. It answers the question, are you profitable? Project ROI is how efficient is your service desk and desktop support? Can you invest in projects that improve your ROI? A project might be a root cause analysis project. It might be an investment in a technology, a remote tool like BombGuard, GoToAssist, LogMeIn. It might be an investment in generally, these are human capital projects, so not hard dollar investments, but human capital projects where you're investing human resources to accomplish some objective that will yield a higher return in relation to that human resource investment. And then we've got the hard dollar ROI, investment ROI, as we call it. These would be technology investments, as an example, process investments, idle training, for example. Investing in human resources, increasing headcount, for example, in insourcing or outsourcing can be subject to an ROI calculation. But we make this distinction because I believe that ROI has to be viewed very differently if we're talking about the profitability of service and support, or if we're talking about a specific process that's largely human-driven, project ROI, or if we're talking about a hard dollar spend on some technology or training. And so we're going to go through a case study on each one of these, starting with organizational ROI. Now, if you're running a service desk, this is our example here, there are three ways you create economic value. And one of those is through shift left. You've undoubtedly heard that term. It's perhaps one of the industry's mega trends. Perhaps not as big a mega trend as enterprise service desk. We don't have time to talk about that today, but I will say that shift left is still a mega trend in the industry. The data shown on this page is from 2016, and what it shows is from level -1, which is incident prevention, all the way to vendor support, what the cost of resolution of these tickets was in North America in 2016. So if you prevent an incident, for example, through root cause analysis, it doesn't cost you anything. Those are the best tickets of all because you've eliminated them entirely. Customer's better off, you're better off. If you drive a call through self-help, or I should say a ticket through self-help, on average the cost is about $2. Now, it's going to depend on the volume that you drive through that self-help channel. It might be more than $2, it might be less, but on average it's about $2 a ticket. The fully loaded cost of a service desk ticket at level 1, when you take all the personnel, salaries and benefits, plus the indirect personnel, supervisors, team leads, workforce schedulers, QA, QC people, and the like, and also add in the facilities expense, the travel, the training, the office supplies, divide it out by contact volume, and you're looking at about $22 per ticket. You push a ticket to the right, and desktop support gets involved, it's about $70. If you have to push a ticket to IT support, like a NOC, or for example, a mainframe data center or an application development and maintenance group, you're looking at $104 per ticket. Field support, get into a vehicle and go to the site of the device or the user, $221. And a vendor like IBM, Oracle, Microsoft, or Cisco, for example, roughly $600 to get that ticket resolved. So shift left is the idea that if you can take a desktop ticket and get it resolved at level 1, that's a good thing. Better yet, if we can push it into self-help, that's an even better thing. So shift left, how many of these tickets can we move to the left? And anytime we're resolving a ticket at the service desk that could have been done through self-help, think password reset, then we have to ask ourselves, what are we doing resolving password resets at level 1? And by the way, I've been in this industry now 28 years, and password resets were the single largest category of tickets when I started in this industry. Today, they're still the single largest category of tickets, which makes no sense whatsoever because there are really good tools out there for password resets. And the fact is the vast majority of those should be going through self-help, self-service. There are always going to be individuals that want to call, want to chat, or want to email you to reset their password, but the vast majority of those can be driven through self-help and should be driven through self-help. And that's what self-help is for the simple things. You don't want an end user spending hours and hours in a self-help portal because they're defeating the purpose. They're actually costing you more money if they spend that much time in a self-help portal. In fact, the rule of thumb we use at MetricNet is that you shouldn't be spending more than 10 minutes at a time in a self-help portal, because if it's taking you more than 10 minutes to self-help yourself, you're really better off calling the service desk or getting a ticket off to desktop support. But good strategic support organizations are constantly thinking about how they shift left. How do they move the tickets to the left to minimize the cost of support, minimize the total cost of ownership in service and support? The second way you create economic value in a service desk is through channel mix, and specifically deflecting contacts into lower cost channels. Now, if we look at the 10 years of data from 2007 to 2016, we look at voice as a percent of total tickets. It's gone from about almost 80% to just over 50%. The big winner has been chat. It's gone from a few percent to almost 18%. Web and email tickets have gone from about 10 to around 16%. Self-help, self-service has been a bit of a disappointment. It's gone from around 8 to 12% of total tickets. And so voice is decreasing as a percent of total, and these alternative channels of chat, email, web, and self-service are increasing as a percentage of total. This reflects channel mix. Why is this good in terms of creating economic value? Well, I'm going to click my mouse, and when I do, a right-hand axis is going to come up that shows dollars per ticket. The lines you're looking at now are all volume lines. They interpret on the left-hand axis. The next line will be an orange line, and it gets interpreted on the right-hand axis, and it represents cost per ticket. Cost per ticket has dropped from around $24.50 to about $22. That's what we showed on the prior chart. There's the $22 in 2016. Why? Because the non-voice channels are lower cost than the voice channels. Chat is lower cost than voice due to concurrency. Email and web are lower cost because they dampen out the Erlang spikes and valleys, meaning that they are subject to an Erlang distribution just like voice is, but they don't peak and trough at the same time. So when you superimpose an email web Erlang distribution on top of a voice Erlang distribution, the peaks and valleys tend to dampen each other out. So you get better resource utilization out of both voice and email web when you do that. And then self-help, self-service, kind of obvious. A $2 ticket is a whole lot less expensive than a $22 ticket, or shift further right, a $70 ticket in desktop support. So channel mix and contact deflection into these lower cost channels has averaged down the cost per ticket. So if you don't have active efforts to shift left and active efforts to deflect contacts into these lower cost channels, you should think about doing that because you can create a fair amount of economic value here. The third and biggest contributor to ROI for a service desk is that you make end users more productive. Your average end user now has more than 3 devices. They might have a cell phone, a smartphone, they might have a tablet, a desktop, a laptop, they might even have a printer or server in their office, but more than 3 devices on average. And when they don't work the way they're supposed to, productivity is lost. It doesn't mean that they're out of business, but it means that there's probably some workaround that's required when they have an IT-related issue. When they open up a service desk ticket or a desktop support ticket, it means that productivity is going to be impeded for some period of time. We've been able to quantify that. And that's what we're showing on this chart. It looks complicated, but the idea behind it is fairly straightforward. There were 60 companies that participated in a benchmark with us. We benchmarked both their service desk and their desktop support, and then based on their performance, we put them into 4 quartiles. Now, quartile just means 1/4. Out of 60, 15 would be 1/4. So we have 15 data points stacked up over the first quartile, 15 data points stacked up over the second quartile, and so on for quartiles 3 and 4. Now, there was an industrial engineering study, time and motion, done to try and estimate how much time did a typical end user lose every time they opened up a service desk or a desktop support ticket. And we're able to quantify that. And what we discovered is this: if you're lucky enough to work in one of these top quartile performers, you're still going to lose about 17 productive hours per year. That's 2 full days of productivity due to IT-related problems and issues. If you're unlucky enough to work in a 4th quartile service support organization, these data points over here, you're going to lose about 47 productive hours a year. That's more than a full week of productivity. That's a week and a day. Think about that. If someone told me at the beginning of the year that you're going to lose a week and a day for every person in this business due to IT-related problems and issues, I would say, what can we do to fix it? The single best thing you can do to fix it is to improve the quality of service and support and get down to something closer to 17 lost productive hours per year. You're never going to get it down to 0. But there's a huge difference between the top quartile and the 4th quartile performers. 30 productive hours per year difference between those two. Think about that. If you're returning an extra 10, 20, 30 productive hours per end user per year, multiply that by the tens, hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands, or even hundreds of thousands. Walmart has over 300,000 employees now. Multiply that hourly savings by the head count. You can monetize that. Your average end user in North America costs about $100,000 or $120,000. When you add up their salaries, their benefits, and everything associated, the overhead associated with them, their office space and everything else, $100,000 to $120,000. So you can come up with an estimated savings of hours, that is person hours. Divide that by 1,800 person hours per year, and you're going to see this in a case study momentarily, and you can determine how many FTEs, full-time equivalent headcount, you returned in productivity to the organization. And when I talk about service and support organizations having an ROI of 400, 500, 600%, this is where most of it comes from, is that you make end users more productive, but you can get significant ROI from channel mix and significant ROI from shift left as well. So let's get into our first case study. This is real data. It's not from Anytown, USA, so we've kind of disguised a couple things. But other than that, the data is real, including their annual spend, which was $2.7 million, including their headcount, 27 and a quarter, including their contact volume, 15,115 inbound per month. Let me magnify the data that really matters, because there's a lot on this page. This was taken right out of one of our benchmarking reports. Let me magnify the data that really matters. Annual operating expense from the prior page, 2.75 million, 2.75 million, almost exactly. Inbound volume, 15,115. That was that number right here. Here was the spending number. 3,707 outbound contacts per month. They're doing it with 27 and a quarter FTEs. Let's quantify the 3 sources of economic value: shift left, channel mix, and return productivity. We'll start with shift left. Contact volume 9840. Where'd that come from? Well, we took 15,115 and we took out the self-help tickets. Okay, subtract 5275 and you get 9840. As we feel if you're shifting all the way to self-help, that's pretty good. So we're not going to include that in our calculation here. So of the agent-assisted contacts, voice, email, web, chat, we got 9,840. Now this company had a 91.5% first level resolution rate. What that means is that 91.5% of the tickets that could be resolved at level 1 were resolved at level 1. The other 8.5% got pushed out to desktop level NIT or a vendor or field support. The peer group in their benchmark, their FLR, first level resolution rate, was only 82.5%. So we have a 9 percentage point difference here. What is that worth to us? Well, we can apply that 9 percentage points to 9840 and say, well, we're solving an additional 886 tickets per month at level 1 because our first level resolution rate is significantly higher than the peer group average. Okay, what are those 886 tickets worth? They're worth at least $669 each, because if we go back to the shift left diagram, $69, if we push a ticket from level 1 out to desktop support, and this is a conservative estimate. These are additive, meaning that it's not a total of 69, it's 22 plus 69. So we're going to incur $69 in cost by pushing a ticket out to level 2. If we push it back to level 1, we save $69 at the very least. We don't know how many of those tickets went to desktop versus IT support versus field support versus vendor support. So $69 is a very conservative estimate of what we are saving per ticket. So we multiply the $69 by the 886 extra tickets we resolved because we have a good first level resolution rate, and we're saving at least $733,000 a year from shift left. That's the first part of our R return. What's the second part? Channel mix. Okay, here's how we look at channel mix. These represent the costs. Go back here. Well, we ran the math, and the cost per contact for their voice calls and their voicemail was $23.33. We know that email and web submitted tickets are less for the reasons I mentioned earlier. They dampen out the Erlang distribution. Chat is even less, about 70% of the total cost of a voice call. Email and web are about 80% of the cost of a voice call. Chat's about 70% due to concurrency. Walk-up is expensive. We know that. Walk-up can do you a lot of good because it creates empathy, it creates high levels of customer satisfaction, but you have to be careful about controlling the volume in the walk-up because a walk-up channel is your most expensive channel. So $35 per call there. They have 237 walk-ups per month. And then other, for the benefit, to be conservative, we just assign the same cost as we did to a voice contact. We add it all up, and the annual total, $2,754,000. If everything had been voice, that is $15,115 multiplied by $23.33, we would have spent an extra $1.5 million. So the annual savings versus voice alone, $1.47 million, almost $1.5 million. This is what is called ROI channel mix ROI. Because we're not entirely voice, we're deflecting contacts into lower cost channels. Remember this diagram? Deflect contacts into lower cost channels, chat, email, web, self-help, and you average down your cost per ticket. And so that's the second source of ROI. We got $1.5 million from channel mix. The last and the biggest is from productivity gains. Now this organization was a top quartile performer. The industry average amount of productivity lost, I gave you the extreme a few minutes ago, 47 hours. The industry average is about 26 hours. This company, because they are a top performer, can expected to be in the range of 17 productive hours lost per year. That's still 2 full days per year. So what's the difference between 17 and 25.9? 8.8 productive hours per user per year. They're supporting 8,200 end users. Do the math, 8.8 times 8,200, 72,160 productive hours returned per year. The average FTE works 1,800 hours a year. Do the division, 72,160 over 1,800. That's the equivalent of 40 FTEs. This organization was a high-tech business. Their average FTE cost right around $120,000 when you include their, not just their salary and benefits, but also their office space and everything else associated with that. And so we can look at $120,000 multiplied by 40 FTEs, and our productivity return to this organization is worth almost $5 million, about $4.8 million. So we've got $4.8 million of productivity savings, $1.4 million of channel mix savings, $733,000 of shift left savings. So we've got our channel mix ROI, our shift left ROI, productivity ROI, add it all up, $7 million in R return, 2.75, you've seen this number 3 or 4 times now. Do the math, 7 million or 2.75 million, 255%. So we're well above 100%. Moreover, and let me digress for just a moment here. This is not a counting level of accuracy. No, nobody's fooled by this. We know this is directionally accurate. Is it off by 20 percentage points, 30 percentage points? It might be. But I want to be very clear. We're not looking for a counting level of accuracy. What we're looking for is a good number that we believe in, that we know is directionally accurate, that tells us what our ROI is. And a 255% ROI is pretty powerful. It changes the nature of the relationship you have with your organization, because no longer will you be considered a pure cost center when you can produce evidence like this. You will be considered a value center. More on that later, because I think that's the most powerful thing that comes out of an ROI calculation. But for this particular, remember we're talking about organizational ROI for this particular service desk. The ROI was an estimated 255%, which means that they are saving the organization or creating economic value 2.55 times what their annual spend is. Let's talk about project ROI. And I'm going to take some data from HDI, the State of Today's IT 2017 report. And what they found is that those organizations that were highly mature with their IT service management, 52% actually said their incident volume was trending downward. That's surprising to me. I didn't think anybody's incident volume was trending downward. But for those that are highly mature with IT service management, it's only about 10% of the population of IT organizations, 52% said that their incident volume was trending downward. For those that hadn't gotten started on their IT service management maturity journey, or who were relatively immature in that process, not evolved very far, only 23% said their volume was going down. Wouldn't it be better to have lower volume than higher volume? Yes, of course. Ticket elimination is the holy grail. Remember level -1, that is incident elimination. You just don't have the problem. Eliminating tickets that way is a very powerful thing. And so what we have here is hard data that says as ITSM matures, you can expect to see fewer incidents come in to your service and support organization. And I want to give a plug here to the ITSM Academy. Karen did a very good job of giving you the one paragraph overview right at the beginning of today's webcast, but I want to point out as well that they've got a number of tools on their website that allow you to calculate ROI in different ways. So be aware of the fact that in addition to doing a lot of training, there's a lot of really good tools on the ITSM Academy website that you want to avail yourself to and take advantage of. So here's our scenario. We've got an insurance company. Their service desk costs them just under $5 million a year. They've got 8,200 end users. They handle about 21,300 tickets a month. And they decided that they were going to undertake a fairly aggressive root cause analysis program. Why? Because this is a good thing. If your ticket volume is going down because you can eliminate it through root cause analysis, that's a good thing. And so here's what happened. They embarked upon a fairly aggressive RCA root cause analysis program. At the beginning of the year, they were supporting 8,200 end users. By the end of the year, they had grown 8,700 end users, so 460 extra end users. But their ticket volume, because of the root cause analysis, went from 21,300 to 19,100. So 2,200 fewer tickets, even though headcount grew by 460. So monthly tickets per user went from 2.6 to 2.21, a savings of 0.4 tickets per user per month. Annual operating expense dropped from $4.8 million to $4.2 million. That's a savings of $543,000. Cost per ticket went from $18.66 to $18.44, savings of 22 cents a ticket. But here's where we want to get our total savings. The annual cost per user for level 1 service desk support was $582. That's about the North American average. It's about $600 per end user per year to support them from a service desk. Now they dropped that to $489. Just divide the 4.22 million divided by 8650. You come up with $489 per year. They saved $94 per person per year. Multiply that by the number of end users, 8,650, and you get a savings of $813,000. That's our R return. What was the I? Well, they didn't keep track of it. But what they said is that we had 2 people working on it. They spent about half their time. It was a 1-year project, so that's an FTE. If we use the rule of thumb that we just used, $120,000 for an FTE, salary, benefits, all the overhead associated with them. Do the division, 813,000 saved divided by $120,000 for a full-time FTE, you get more than a 700% or almost a 700% ROI. This is huge. And again, this is what we call project ROI. It's the result of investing human resources in an endeavor that is designed to produce economic value. It can be quantified. We can calculate the ROI from this initiative, and it's well over 600%. Let's now look at investment ROI. Now, ROI is at the heart of every single business case. Its business case is just a proposed investment and an economic evaluation of that investment. You're prospectively looking into the future and saying, does it make sense to buy this tool? Does it make sense to invest in this training? It's based on quantifiable projections of investment, that is your spending, and your expected cost savings or profit improvement. It's a central component of every business case. And other business case metrics might include time to break even or payback period, even cost benefit ratio, but we're talking about ROI today. And so we're going to get into our third case study. This is investment ROI, a hard dollar spent on a particular technology. The service desk had 18 FTEs. They were supporting almost 5,000 end users. They were spending $2.2 million a year, handling about 7,600 tickets per month, spending about $24.50 per ticket. Their FLR was 72.9%. Okay, here's our value proposition. They did not have a remote control tool. You know the names: BombGuard, GoToAssist, LogMeIn. Some of the older tools are NetView and Tivoli, but there's a lot of tools out there. I'm not pitching for anybody. The value proposition is, if we invest in this tool, it will increase first level resolution by driving shift left. We already know shift left is valuable because it reduces our total cost of ownership. Now the tool, it's a cloud-based tool, $12,000 a month or $144,000 a year. We want to know what this is our investment, $144,000 a year. What's the return? Well, let's figure it out. Okay, first level resolution after the investment, real data, went to 86.3%. Monthly ticket volume went up. You can expect that. If your FLR increases, number of tickets you handle is going to go up. Went from 7,620, that was our original, 7,620, went up to 9,021. Their head count increased from 18 to 21. You have to if your volume is going to increase. Annual expense went from 2.2 to 2.9 million. Number of end users supported, we assume they stayed flat. Cost per ticket also went up, $24.56 to $27. Okay, well, this doesn't look like good ROI. We spent $144,000 and our costs went up by $689,000. So where's the benefit? Well, the benefit is in shift left. Desktop support costs decreased by $1 million. Desktop headcount went from 23 to 14. They lost 9 FTEs. And by the way, you saw on the previous page, we increased FTE headcount by 3. We reduced desktop headcount by 9. That, by the way, worldwide is about the ratio, meaning that 3 to 1 is the ratio of tickets that can be handled by a level 1 tech versus a desktop tech. If a desktop tech is handling 150 tickets a month, you can expect a level 1 tech to handle about 450, about 3 times as many. So if we can reduce 3 FTEs at desktop support through shift left, we can replace those 3 with 1 in the service desk. Why? Well, because we don't have travel time when you're doing remote support. In desktop support, which we define as desk side, device side, meaning you have to go to the site of the user or the device, you have travel time associated with going to and from the site of the ticket. So if we can shift that ticket left, we also have lower cost resources at level 1. We're going to be saving some money. And so after the investment, this is desktop support, headcount reduced by 9, same number of end users. Annual operating expense went down. Ticket volume went down. By the way, the difference between these two showed up as an increase on the service desk side. So from 7,620 to 9,021 was the same reduction, going from 3,700 down to 2,300. And the cost per ticket also went from $74 to $79. Okay, so what we've got here, and by the way, digression. Why did their cost per ticket go up? Well, it's because when you shift things left, generally the stuff that gets shifted left are the easier tickets. In other words, they don't require desktop support, and so you can shift them to the left. So what they're left with is a mix of tickets that's more complex, longer handle time, and so that's why their ticket costs went up. So why did the service desk cost per ticket also go up? Because what gets shifted left tends to be the harder tickets from the help desk perspective. So you're kind of getting hit on both sides here. The desktop support group is shifting left their easiest tickets that can be resolved at level 1, and what the help desk gets is a bunch of hard tickets, by their standard. And so their costs go up per ticket. Desktop support costs go up per ticket. Real question is, did we get anything out of this when we look at it? So here's our investment, $144,000. Add our R is a plus $688,000. Subtract $1,099,000 savings. A net savings of $410,000. So $1,099,000 minus $688,000 saves us $410,000 a year. Divide that by our investment over 144, 285% return on investment. That's a tool that makes sense. By the way, this is what a lot of these business cases look like for organizations that don't yet have a remote control tool. It's one of the easiest investments to justify for this reason. It allows you to increase both your first level and your first contact resolution rates. Okay, I never like concluding these webcasts without talking about what I call the paradox of IT service and support, which puts everything into a strategic context. You may or may not be surprised to know that on average, IT organizations spend about 4% of their budget on service and support. The other 96% is spent on things like application development and maintenance, network ops, mainframe, mid-range computing, desktop computing, and then services like disaster recovery and disaster preparedness. So if you're a big organization spending $1 billion on IT, 4% of that is 40 million. You might spend 40 million a year on IT service and support. Again, that includes level 1 and desktop support. Now, for many, even in leadership positions, CIOs, CTOs, directors, managers, assume that there's no upside in service and support, so they view it as a cost center. Now, a cost center is something you have to stay in business. Think of insurance, think of utilities, think of floor space. You need those things, but they don't create a competitive advantage for you. So with a cost center, your goal is to minimize that cost. Same thing with telecommunications. Think of it, you're always wanting to minimize that as long as you don't sacrifice quality. Same thing with office space, same thing with utilities, same thing with insurance. Minimize those costs because they do nothing for your competitive advantage. But if service and support is viewed as a cost center, the same logic applies. If you're nothing but a cost center, I'm going to try and minimize your cost, which means minimize headcount because these are labor-intensive functions and the majority of your costs are headcount related. Your agents, your team leads, your supervisors, your technicians, your costs are mostly tied up in your personnel. About 70% of your cost is tied up. So when service and support is viewed as a cost center, there's enormous pressure to reduce expenses. The vast majority, 90+% of service and support organizations operate from a cost center perspective, which means they're constantly under pressure. They never get the resources they need, the headcount, the technology, the training hours. They just never get the resources they need. And as a result, they're simply day in, day out trying to survive. They can never achieve their full potential because they're being viewed as a value center. But we believe that there's a better way to view and manage a service and support organization, and that is by focusing on the value that's created. We know that value gets created from a variety of things. So there's a cost center mindset, which is minimize headcount, minimize cost, a value center mindset, which says if you can actually create economic value and you can demonstrate it through ROI analysis, I'm in, meaning that I'll give you what you need if you can produce ROI above 100%. That's the whole dilemma here. Vast majority operate as cost centers. Only a handful operate as value centers. If you can make the change, and it's a radical change, from service and support as a cost center to service and support as a value center, your lives will change dramatically. Service and support will change dramatically. And the single thing that motivates me most in this industry is getting this message out there and helping service and support organizations calculate their ROI, demonstrate ROI well above 100%, and change hearts and minds from cost center to value center. Because as a cost center, you're always going to be on the defensive. You're always operating from a defensive crouch with one hand tied behind your back. You're always begging for resources. And the vast majority, I hate to say, of service and support organizations operate that way. But we believe there's a better way. And that better way is to prove that you create economic value and then boldly go forth and say, I produced 200, 300, 400% economic value last year. Don't try and cheat me on headcount, investment dollars, training time, training dollars, because I would venture to guess that if you asked any other part of IT to come up with an ROI calculation, they would be nowhere close to what service and support is able to produce. We produce ROI through shift left. Here's what it is. We produce ROI through channel mix. Here's what it is. We produce ROI by making end users more productive. Oh, and by the way, we are the key to your success. And I'm talking to a manager, a director, a CIO, or a CTO. And in fact, this is one of the very first slides we show them. When we coach and we do benchmarks and assessments for senior executives within large IT organizations, this is the first chart we show them. And essentially what it says is this. There were over 1,000 large corporations that answered a survey. And it was a multiple choice question. The question was, what drives your opinion of IT? We didn't say what drives your opinion of the service desk, what drives your opinion of desktop support. We said, what drives your opinion of IT? It was a multiple choice question. We gave them a whole bunch of choices and said, pick your top three, which is why you add these up and it's more than 100%. But here was the number one choice. What drives my view of IT? The service desk. What drives my view of IT? Desktop support. Now, why would that be? Well, this 4% function, 4% of total spending, is the majority of time, or this is where most end users have their only contact with IT service and support. Think about it. On average, an end user will have 1.5 contacts, 1.5 tickets per month to the level 1 service desk. That's 18 touches a year. Desktop support, they'll open up a ticket every other month. That's 6 touches per year. 18 and 6, that's almost 25 touches on average per year from an end user to service and support. Moreover, they don't spend a lot of time or any time with the NOC, the data center, application development and maintenance. But they do have frequent interactions with service and support, on average 24 or 25 a year. It ranges based on vertical market from a low of like 18 or 8, all the way up to about 80 or 90. But it makes sense that an end user says, well, my opinion of IT is driven by, interactions with the service desk or desktop support, because that is the only interaction they have with IT. And so the first slide we show our executive clients is, you need to understand this, you need to ask questions about it, and you need to tell us, MetricNet, what you're going to do once you understand this. Because if this doesn't radically change your view of service and support, if this doesn't make you want to go down there, talk to them, find out what they need, and give them their resources they need to fully achieve their potential, you're missing the point. Now, we're not in favor of just throwing money at a service desk or desktop support, but what we are in favor of is making rational decisions, making intelligent choices. And if you've got this 4% activity out there that's struggling because they don't have enough resources, and it wouldn't take much to push them past the tipping point to where they could become a value center and really achieve ROI through shift left, channel mix, and return productivity to end users, you're missing something huge. Moreover, what customers think of service and support is what they think of IT. That's the gist of this chart, is if they're happy with service and support, they're going to be happy with all of IT. So this is a proxy for how well IT is doing. Moreover, it's a proxy for how you, Mr. or Ms. CIO, CTO, director, manager, are doing. And to be really blunt about it, this is job security. If you don't do anything with this, you're making a mistake. If you don't do anything with this, you're missing a huge opportunity. We recommend you spend an hour a week with service and support. If you can't get there in person, set up a weekly phone call. Find out how things are going. Read the reports, weekly, monthly, whatever. Ask questions. Get engaged. Find out what they need. Make them prove it with ROI. That's okay. But don't shortchange them, because to shortchange them is to shortchange all of IT. And to shortchange all of IT will dramatically shortchange your career, to be quite honest about it. So I want to give you some final thoughts on ROI. Progressive support organizations use ROI to demonstrate their economic contribution to the organization and to justify investments. A demonstrably positive ROI, meaning above 100%, will greatly increase your credibility in the organization and leverage your ability to get things done. It gives you street cred. You can get things done when you've got a high ROI. Changing the paradigm from cost center to value center really should be high on your list of priorities. And I want to encourage you to be bold about asserting your rights as a value center. As the interface between end users and all of IT, you have both a special responsibility as well as a special opportunity. And the responsibility and the opportunity are one and the same, because you have the power to influence hearts and minds about all of IT. What you do at this interface, the experience the customer has at this interface, has far-reaching implications. It reverberates throughout the organization. Customers have consistently positive experiences. They're going to have a consistently positive opinion for all of IT. By contrast, if they're not having good experiences here, just the opposite will be the case. So when IT service and support is performing well, it almost doesn't matter what else is happening in IT. Customers are going to think great things about IT. By contrast, if service and support is weak and delivering, marginal experiences or inconsistent experiences, and customers are going to think all of IT is the same way, regardless of how well they might be performing in the NOC, in the data center, in the network, in application development and maintenance. And so everything goes through this portal, this interface, service and support, you have a great opportunity, a great responsibility to ensure that you're doing the most you can with those customer interactions. Turn your cost center into a value center, and then assert your rights as a value center. If I'm a rational manager and someone comes to me with that ROI calculation we went through, 255% or 280%, I'm going to say, how much more of that can I get? Think about it. Nobody gets that kind of return on investment, but if you can get it in service and support, you ought to demand the rights that go along with having those high ROIs. Okay, I'm going to take questions in just a moment, but before I do so, I just want to give you a couple of pieces of contact information in case you want to reach out to MetricNet. You can email us at info@metricnet.com, or you can call us at this number in the United States at 703-992-8160. Karen gave you a link to download the white paper. And there's also a link to download, and I think you can also download, I'm sorry, let me back up. Karen gave you a link to download today's presentation. You can also download it from our site if you want to. There was also a survey that was administered at the beginning of today's session that asked you if you wanted to receive the white paper. So you've got some additional resources. You can download the presentation from the ITSM Academy website or from the MetricNet website, and you can also get the white paper from ITSM Academy. So with that, Karen, I'm going to turn it over to you because you're going to question me. You're going to interrogate me here, aren't you?
I am going to interrogate you. Be assured of that, Jeff. First of all, I want to thank you very much for joining us today, Jeff. I mean, that was a great presentation. I love the examples. I mean, they were just real life examples and so detailed. So for me, that's perfect. So I'm sure that that was for other people. And I hate to say it, but I am one of the people that I do like to chat with people. I find for me, that's the fastest and most effective way for me to get the answer to what I'm looking for. So I'm sorry that I'm kind of like in the middle of, you know, the cost, I guess. I'm not on the lower end I'm on the furthest left, but I'm not calling in directly.
Oh, I'm worse. I'm a caller. I'm one of those offenders that picks up the phone and calls everybody when I need support.
I do prefer the chat, but I think that's because when I'm chatting with somebody versus an email, if I'm emailing somebody, I have to wait for them to reply back to me, and then I can say, oh wait, that's not really quite what I meant. And then, you know, it takes so long to go back and forth. So that's why I kind of.
So you get the live interaction. It's just not voice, it's chat. Yep.
Exactly.